Madam Clerk, are we ready?
Yep.
All right. Good evening, and I will call to order the Riverside City Council meeting for Thursday, September 16th, 2021. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Campbell,
Here.
Mr. Denny,
Here.
Mrs. Franklin,
Here.
Ms. Fry,
Here.
Ms. Lomach,
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield,
Here.
Mayor Williams.
Here. No absent members. Mr. Laura, any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
No. Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Deputy Mayor Lomach to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Agenda is approved. If you would please all join me at this time to rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've all had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from the September 2nd council meeting. Is there a motion to approve those as published?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Dang and a second from Mr. Maxfield to approve the minutes as published. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. On to the financial report. Any pertinent updates before we approve the financial report as presented? Or any questions from members of council? Let's start with that. Any questions? I'm all over the place. We're 2 minutes in.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin to approve the financial report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have any citizens that are joining us in chambers tonight. You may comment on any agenda or non-agenda items. There doesn't appear to be anybody with us right now, but if you join us at some point between now and the end of the meeting, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll move right into department updates, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Lohr.
Mr. Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Lord. Of course, you had the August financial reports in your packet, and you'll see that income tax, had a good month. I would caution, though, that's because we got 3 distributions from CCA. So in truth, we're kind of right on the average, if you will. Or I would expect September to drop back a little bit because we got the first part of what normally would be in September on the last day of August. So it shifts that a little bit. Also in the packet, of course, we've got the supplemental, which we're going to deal with a little later. You saw at your spots, I gave you an updated exhibit or attachment to that supplemental for a couple of items. We had added funds for legal expenses because we pretty well exhausted what we already had budgeted for legal expenses for the year. And then at the very end of that list, there is an appropriation for the Brentwood TIF money, which of course is money in, money out, but I have to be able to write out the check to Brentwood, so that's why that's there. So the net effect is adding about 50,000 of expense, but you saw there were 2 Brentwood lines. One of them I'm reducing, the other Brentwood TIF by some 25,000. So really it's administrative updates that we needed there above and beyond what was already in your packet. One news item, CCA has announced that they are closing their Hamilton office at the end of September. So the staff at this Hamilton office is going to be kind of roving on call. The main person at the Hamilton office actually lives in the Dayton area. So be doing just like Michelle, taking phone calls and coming in. In fact, they've scheduled a work day in October and November and also in December for people, just to be here, but they'll take calls and of course make arrangements for other times coming up. And they are starting to work on a schedule update for the spring filing season to get several days to come in. So they anticipate they'll be visiting the Riverside City Hall quite often to help us out. And now we've got 2 roving agents satisfying us and the other 5 or 6 communities in the Dayton area. That's pretty much what I would like to point out.
Questions for Mr. Garrett? All right. Well, thank you so much for the update, Tom. We certainly appreciate it. And I believe we are over to Mr. Burkholder. Is that correct, Mr. Lohr?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Gary.
Good evening, everyone. As always, we're very busy with the code enforcement. We're probably close to about 1,000 cases. And in addition to that, Mr. Lunsford is still working on verifying some of those vacant property lists that we have. We have had some response from some of the owners that we've contacted, challenging that in fact that is not a vacant property that they have. So we'll continue to work with that to verify those and respond accordingly. They can file a petition with ProChamps, our partner, but we also receive some correspondence directly here at the city on that. On October 5th, we're going to be kicking off the land use plan with a tour with MKSK, and that'll be our zoning administrator, economic development specialist, and myself. They wanted to come take a tour of the city, see some of the vacant properties we have and get a better feel from that. And then we'll be working on comprising a steering committee. So I'll have more to report on that after October 5th. Still very busy with Right Point, really on 3 different fronts. We're getting close to renewing some of our current tenants. We're still in negotiations. Mr. Meter has had quite a bit of activity. He won't be here tonight, but possibly at our next meeting. We want to bring some leases forward to the council for approval. And we're getting a lot of interest and a lot of showings as well in our space as things begin to tighten up in the market. The other aspect is really working on a lot of the improvements that we still have here. I think Mr. Lohr maybe has reported that the backflow preventer has been installed and they got the sump pump down in the pit. But we have a lot of other things that we're working on the buildings as far as making repairs and getting an inventory of what's going to be next to repair. As you probably know, 2121 Harshman, they started on where the indoor storage is going. They started demolition on the inside, so they've started cleaning that out. So that's good news as far as progress. We have a planning commission meeting next Monday, and then the following Tuesday, we'll have our BZA meeting. So we've only got 3 cases on BZA, so that's pretty good since many times we have more than that, sometimes up to 5. And then tonight you have 2 pieces of legislation on there. And of course, the law director can answer any questions on that relative to the legal questions. But one is repealing some of those other sections that deal with fines. And then we have another resolution that will update our fees on fines and then also on our zoning permits. That's something we've wanted to do for quite some time. And our zoning administrator, Nia Holt, did a very good job compared it to other communities. And it was long overdue. So hopefully that'll help as far as revenues for the department as well. And I'll be happy to answer any of the questions council may have.
Go ahead. We'll go Sarah, then we'll go Beth.
Okay. In the past, kind of like once a year or like every 18 months, the council would take a tour of the city in a bus with the appropriate members of the staff. So in that regard, you mentioned having a tour with the land use plan.
Yeah, with the representatives from MKSK, they wanted to come and we'll have a meeting that day too, but they wanted to kick it off with a tour of the city so they can get a better feel for the community.
Well, would you consider the possibility of seeing if any council members would like to take the tour of the city?
I don't have a problem with that. I think we're looking at trying to get a 15 passenger bus for that. So,
Well, when you come up with that date, because I think it's very valuable information for council members to hear and to see. And
I would agree.
sometimes we don't all get into the cracks and crevices. So if you could share that information when you have it and see how many council members might be available to take advantage of that side of the city.
Very
I
good.
would be interested, so.
Sure. Thank you.
Bev, you had a question?
Yeah, you mentioned something about storage units on Harshman. Whereabouts?
The 2121 Harshman that we rezoned,
Morris,
where Morris Furniture was.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, the Morris Furniture
And then that's gonna
facility.
be storage.
yeah.
All right, any other questions for Gary? All right, thank you very much for the update, and I'm especially excited to hear about the land use planning process ongoing, so great to hear.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to the administration update. Is that going to be you, Mr. Lohr?
Yes,
You're
that
gonna
would be
do
me.
2 for 1 here in the city
Yep,
manager
that's
report?
right. Just a few items here. Mr. Burkholder already mentioned that backflow preventer at the other building is complete, so we're glad to get rid of that heavy equipment and on the site and get that item checked off the list there. It's still due for inspection by environmental services, but we're hoping to get that completed shortly. As everyone is aware, we've had some work going on Airway Road this week of great interest to the community. So the work is going to be finished overnight tonight. They're going to sweep up the remainder of the fine stone that was applied to Airway Road. Just a brief overview. So that is a rejuvenating process that extends the life of the roadway. It's something that we've been doing in the community for the foreseeable past 15, 20 years. So it's typically something that we do after a roadway is completed so we can stretch our dollars for that pavement. So that's going to be completed overnight. I think it'll look much better than people had originally seen there when they were concerned about a gravel surface and that sort of thing. In regard to educational efforts for the income tax on the ballot, we are working on completing a educational video. We're hoping to have that completed, edited, and ready for release to the public at the end of this week, if not early next week. And we're also working on an educational mailer that'll go out to everybody in the community, has general information about what the income tax is, and some information about what it would mean to the fire department and the police department.
On that subject, is there a PAC that maybe the police and fire department are putting together to be in support of that physically? I mean, we can only give information,
Yes.
right?
Right.
But a PAC could go out and actually solicit in favor of and push for it. Do you know of any?
So I don't know of anybody who's created a PAC. I know it was looked into by the fire and police unions, but the legal advice that they got, as I understand it, was they could use their existing organizations and purchase signs and flyers and things like that.
Okay.
So there's
But
no
if there
PAC.
isn't, okay, here's
Yeah.
my point. If
Yeah.
there is an organized group that is
Mhm.
going to do that, and I don't know anybody else that might want to jump on this, but I would be spending probably $500 to $1,000 to run for office. Since I do not have to do that,
Mhm.
I am more than willing to put $500 towards that group to help them get this passed, since I don't have to put flyers
Mhm.
and everything out. So
Sure.
let them know that if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, yes, I know, I'm not sure who's representing the police union, but I know Josh Gwynn, Lieutenant Gwynn, is representing the fire union. So you might get in touch with him. He would be a good contact, but I
Okay.
can let them
Officer
know for you.
Toscani.
Tuscany, that's
Yeah,
correct,
I
yeah.
know Officer Toscani is very
Okay,
involved
well,
in-
just let them know, all they get a hold of me and I'll give them some money.
That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lore.
Oh, I do have one.
We'll go Sarah, then we'll go Mike.
In regard to Airway, do you have any information about the pipeline that's being restored there, or what are all those? There's something else going on besides the gravel. At the entryway, there's,
Mhm.
That at the dead end of spinning,
yeah.
right? It looks like it's happening on base property from my eye, but
Well, it-
Mhm.
So there's a small bridge.
I know,
repair one,
yeah.
That whole waterway is supposed to be getting replaced.
Well, that's what,
Correct. The county is working on that
well, I just,
runoff there.
we need to know.
The county's working on the bridge. They're gonna be replacing the
Bridge, yeah.
towards the intersection. But, I know Miller Pipeline did apply for a permit. What the details of that permit is, I don't recall. But I can get that information back to you.
Along with the gravel, I've been asked about what is the pipeline that's going in there, and I didn't know if it's just under the bridge or if it's going to be all along Airway. If there's a lot of pipe laying there, more than just goes under a bridge.
Yeah, because the water from the creek right there behind the
Mhm.
housing goes straight down the side of that road.
Yeah,
And so
into the Lily Creek.
the
Yeah,
Mhm.
part that I read about it, I didn't get into it. They are the runoff and they're looking to fix it.
Mhm. We can, we're not really sure. I don't think the extent of the work that's going on there right now, but we can find out, let you know.
and we might post that that's a county.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
If it is the county, if the Miller Pipeline is the county. Now, the other thing that's going on is gas lines are being replaced.
Hmm.
And that looks like gas line to me, not water line.
I didn't-
So
I didn't-
you may want to check into that because I know they're going to be going down Old Harshman starting October 1st, which does not really make me a happy person, but it is what it is. We'll deal with it. But when it may be part of that whole mess, I don't know. But what I wanted to ask was, can we put some, I know we put some general information that it was a rejuvenator,
Yes.
but if it has a specific name, put it in there so that people are very tech savvy. They'll Google it, make sure we're telling the truth of what it's supposed to do. And that way we are being much more transparent other than just telling them that, no, it's not tar and gravel, it's a rejuvenator. Give them a specific so that they can go out and do their own research if they choose to, so that they understand that what we are doing is really what we say we're doing.
Right. I agree. Ms. Bartlett and I had a conversation this afternoon along those same lines. So we're trying to gather some more information that we can put out there for the public.
Okay, yeah, because we just need to be as transparent as we can.
all
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, fellow council members. We are on to the section of the agenda for public comment on agenda items, although we do not have any members of the public joining us tonight in chambers. So we will move on to new business. We have a couple ordinances in front of us. The first one listed is for a first reading only. You talked about this a little bit, or maybe Gary talked about it a little bit, that we're going to be cleaning up portions of our code to make sure that all of specific items are all tidily grouped in one area.
Yes.
To be found
Yes.
when
So
somebody's looking for them.
exactly.
I'll let you explain.
Okay. So currently we have park shelter fees, planning and zoning fees, and engineering fees in multiple different locations. So this first ordinance repeals all of those fees. And then the last resolution that council votes on tonight addresses reinstituting those fees on one centralized list. So it makes it easier for the public and for staff.
All right, well then, at this time, is there,
Okay, so we are repealing these tonight, but we are also reinstating them tonight.
That's correct.
Okay, I was a little concerned that we would have some days here where people could get stuff for free.
It would actually be the opposite.
because this will still be, this is only a first reading.
That's
When you get
correct,
an
yes.
actual
Oh,
resolution,
okay.
You actually have double protection.
All right, well then at this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the, oh, I'm sorry, Benny, do you have a question?
So my question is, why are we repealing an ordinance, but then we're approving a resolution?
Dalma, can you chime in?
Basically, the way the code currently reads, some of these permit fees were enacted by ordinance, others were enacted by resolution. Clearly, something as, I guess I'll use the word mundane, as changing a fee does not need to be by an ordinance. And therefore, what is being proposed is an ordinance repealing all of them, whether they were established by ordinance or by resolution, and then enacting a resolution setting new fees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the first reading of the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
City charter allows for the first reading of an ordinance to be read by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title?
Ordinance 210778, an ordinance by the council of the city of Riverside, Ohio, repealing all existing codified ordinances and resolutions establishing planning and zoning fees.
Is there any further discussion from members of council? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Denny,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Lomatch.
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. And moving on to the second ordinance, this is the supplemental that Tom spoke about a little bit earlier.
Mr. Garrett should have provided you with an updated attachment. I did have a question prior to the meeting about the appropriation for the American Rescue Plan funds. I spoke to Mr. Garrett about that. Since we have received the funds, Mr. Garrett is of the opinion that we should appropriate them immediately. That's usually the preference when we get federal funds that we see from the auditors, as well as that gives us the ability to spend it if we need it, rather than having to come back last minute for an appropriation of those funds.
Thank you.
All right, and this will be a first reading, second reading, and public adoption, so should we so choose. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval for the first reading of this ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin. City charter allows for a first reading of an ordinance to be read by title only unless a council member requests otherwise. Madam Clerk, would you please read this ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 210779, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Riverside, state of Ohio for the period of January 1 through December 31st, 2021.
Is there any further discussion from members of council on the first reading?
Just to clarify, the change from the packet only involves the fiscal recovery fund, the item at the bottom. That's the only change.
No, that wasn't, the fiscal recovery fund was in the packet already. The change is the first and second items. We have a different dollar amount for the increase in council travel for the
Which has
National
been
League of Cities
canceled.
Council, which has been changed. And then the next item, as I mentioned, was legal expenses. We pretty well reached our spending limit for legal fees for this year, so we got to cover the last quarter of the year. So that's why I'm adding that. And then all the way at the end of the attachment, I added on some increased
Brentwood.
appropriation for the Brentwood
Got it,
pass-through
okay.
funds.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Lomatch, Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Council has been requested to approve both the first and second reading and consider final adoption. If this be our will, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules that dictate the number of days between the first and second readings.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Deputy Mayor Lomatch and a second from Mr. Maxfield. Is there any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Lomatch,
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the second reading and final adoption of this ordinance.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Maxfield. Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance by title only?
Ordinance 210779, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Riverside, state of Ohio for the period of January 1 through December 31st, 2021.
I now open the public hearing for anyone who wishes to comment on ordinance number 21-0-779 at 6:25 PM. Please state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing that there is no one joining us in chambers tonight, I feel safe to close the public hearing at 6:26. Is there any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Lomach,
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. And then we will move to our resolutions, of which we have 5. The first one, Resolution 21-R-2710, was the motion that, or was the resolution that Mr. Maxfield and I asked to be brought forward for a moratorium on the income tax credit. Do we have a motion? Motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Maxfield and a second from Mr. Denning. All those in favor of resolution number 21-R-
Discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any further discussion from members of council?
Yes.
Ms. Fry? Yes, ma'am.
So when you introduced this, I did speak a little bit on why I had some concerns with this proposed moratorium. And so if you'll allow me some time, I've gathered my thoughts a little better. And I have 3 things that I have concerns about. One is that the spirit of the community concern about our promise to not reintroduce the credit reduction is, I don't believe that the community has an issue with my character as a member of council, right? Or any of us, right? It's not a personal thing. It's a process thing. I think the concern is that we have the power to affect their bottom line and they don't have a say in it. This doesn't change that. I would be more on board with doing something where we say we won't raise or we won't reduce the credit without their consent, without putting it to a vote. That to me addresses the meat of the concern better than trying to predict 10 years into the future. The second concern I have is that I don't think a moratorium has any teeth, and it feels a little dishonest. Not that anyone's trying to be dishonest, but it feels dishonest to say we're going to have this moratorium knowing full well that if we change our minds, we just repeal the moratorium and then we vote the change in anyway. That to me feels like we've done damage to the reputation of the council for no good reason. The third thing is that the reason this is unfair isn't that it's always unfair. And what I mean by unfair is where we have this income tax reduction in Riverside and none of the other surrounding communities have it. The thing that makes it unfair is that imbalance where we have one neighbor paying more than double what their neighbor is paying in local income tax. That could change with some law that's introduced in Columbus. And that could happen 3 years down the road. We're picking this 10-year mark out of thin air. And again, if that climate changes and it becomes more unfair in the other direction, then again, we have another black eye if we have to change. I think it's a good idea to try to address the concern of the community, but I think it would be better to try to address it by involving them in the process, by saying, we won't do this without your input, because ultimately that's what it's about.
But if I can respond,
Yeah.
Input is one thing. By charter, we're the only ones who can control this. We couldn't put it to a vote if we wanted to, other than the 7 of us voting to impose on ourselves a moratorium on taking this credit away again, should the ballot initiative result in an affirmative vote for that question on November 2nd. I mean, law director, correct me if I'm wrong. I asked you this question a month ago. Could we essentially put conditions on a moratorium? And you said it's allowed in the charter, so we cannot change the charter. We cannot change a charter. And now we could always say, citizens, we will love your input. We can still do what we want to do anyway. I think that's what we do now. We still take input, but and I don't disagree with many things you said, Brenda, but what I would say, and this is what I said when Jesse and I introduced this, is that I will take a pledge to keep this moratorium. And the 10 years wasn't grabbed out of thin air. But we've gotten budget projections for the last 6 months about where we are between now and 2029. So I would take a little bit of exception to the pulling it out of thin air, because it's not. However, the point I'm trying to make is that right now the citizens don't have any control over that credit. And I would offer them that if the city council, let's say that the vote on November 2nd is in the affirmative and the ballot initiative succeeds and the tax credit is restored.
Yes.
And between then and November 2nd, 2031, we say that we're not going to take that credit back away. What I would say to the citizens who would come back to me and say, but you guys could do it anytime you want to anyway. That's correct. They do have some electoral recourse. If anyone up here votes to take away the credit again, they could recall that candidate. I would encourage them to take what options are available to them. That's all we can do to offer them that. Because when it was taken away the first time,
Yeah.
it was not done with any consent. It was not done with any input other than the people sitting up here. And I'm trying to restore some confidence to the voters that we mean what we say. Now, legally, could a moratorium go away 6 months, next May, whatever? It could. It could. I'm trying to include the electorate and the citizenry and say, if we do that, then you need to hold us accountable, because we're telling you that we don't want to do that. So hold our feet to the fire on that. Hold us accountable. And this is my way. This is what I want. This is my opinion of how we can do that. It certainly doesn't have to be the only opinion.
Could you clarify what you just said? Because I didn't think I followed. Where you said that when they reduced the credit before.
Yeah, that was
They
a
did
referendum
it.
vote.
They didn't, yeah. But then you said like that's not something they should have done. But you also said that consulting with Thelma, that's not something that we can do.
Correct. And I said that, and here's how I said it, Brenda. I said it because you said we should, instead of passing a moratorium, an arbitrary number of years moratorium, we should instead just have the public trust us that if we were going to take the credit back again, we would ask for their input.
Well, okay. I would offer my support for the moratorium if we amended it to include voter participation.
However, we are not able
We
to
can't.
offer that. And I asked that question to Dalma before I brought
That's
this.
originally what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's what we wanted to do. This is our best route.
Because technically from the charter, you're allowed to move the credit however you want.
We could take the whole credit.
You can take
Yeah.
the whole credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that tomorrow. We could do that
Well-
next, we're not meeting next Thursday, but we could do it the next time we could legally meet.
But that
And-
is not the intention.
No,
Right.
hold on.
Be clear, that is not the intention.
Cut his mic.
Okay,
So we could do
I
that.
appreciate the
Yeah,
feedback.
we could do that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that it might ring hollow to some citizens, but I really feel like we need to put our best foot forward for the community and show that we are listening. I've, like April, 2 years ago, this week, I was out hanging door hangers. I would see April's door hangers when I was doing it, and I didn't know April yet. The number one thing I heard from people was that it wasn't the roads, believe it or not, it was the tax credit issue.
Yes.
And I heard it resoundingly. It
I did
wasn't even,
too.
it wasn't even the empty Kmart or the empty MTC building because of the section of town that I live in. It was this. And I feel like I would happily hold my hand up and say, I will stick to this. And if I don't, I invite anyone here to go down to the Board of Elections and recall me as a mayor or council member, and I will get the paperwork for you. That's how strongly I feel that we owe it to the community.
Ditto. Same thing.
Other questions?
No, I don't have questions. I don't believe in voting on something that has no merit as far as the ability to enforce. I mean,
No, we pass resolutions all the time.
well, I just think it has no meat. It has no meaning.
It does if we hold ourselves to
Well,
it.
and you still have to have
But
four
you may
members.
not be here. I may not be here. Any of us could be gone, and you can't speak for what a future council will do.
But we set
But
up,
you're-
but we're setting a budget. We're setting a budget that has affects people way into the future. I don't necessarily agree with the premise. I don't believe you're coming from a disingenuous place, Sarah, but I don't agree with the premise. We are elected to lead. We're elected to make decisions. The decisions that we make do not stop on the day that our term ends. They don't stop on the day that we might decide, Dan Tieffer was supposed to be here instead
you
of Jesse
can't-
Maxfield.
But you can't make you can't pass a resolution that has no teeth. You can't speak for a future council.
No, I can. No, I can't. You're right. I can.
But
But
I
that's up
think-
to
I
the
think-
citizens. That's up to the people who vote them in to
That's
I
decide.
think the
true.
point,
that's not true.
because we
because a
passed
few years
resolution for
ago,
money.
we
and-
talked about a moratorium on marijuana, on selling marijuana in the city, and we didn't pass it. But if we would have passed it, Jesse would have been held to that, and so would April, and so would he. So I disagree that once the moratorium, now, yes.
I'm saying it can
that
be
group-
changed.
As a group, we could
Change it.
vote the moratorium out. But I
That's my
think the
point.
point is that we are making this commitment. And I would like to go ahead and call the question and make it a roll call vote, because I think the public needs to know who is on board with not increasing the taxes for the next 10 years if the 1% passes.
Not
And I think-
increasing the
but I
taxes.
was just gonna say,
Not increasing the,
not increasing the,
Not
leaving the credit at 100%.
giving the credit back and not
Not increasing
increasing
the
it.
credit.
We had a motion a second, correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Okay. April, did you have anything you wanted?
No.
All right, then we'll call the question by roll call or by
Ms.
name, voice.
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Mr. Denning,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
No.
Mrs. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Lomax.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. The next resolution will no doubt be as feistily discussed. Mr. Lohr, this is a MVRPC resurfacing grant.
That's correct. SDP funding.
Well, I'm upset about it. I don't know what it is, but it's got me fired up. I'm just kidding, of course. Thank you for.
Yeah, for
clarifying that.
Valley
Start
Street
thinking
West
about
project.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Maxfield. Any further discussion from members of council?
This is a grant we've already discussed, correct? Yes, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you.
The deadline to apply requires that we have a resolution.
I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
All those in favor of resolution 21-R-2712 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And the next resolution, Mr. Lohr.
Similar, this is STP funding from MVRPC for Spinning Road between Eastman and Burkhardt.
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Ms. Franklin. Any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution 21-R-2713 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And the fourth resolution, Mr. Lohr.
Yes, this is the authorization to apply for a solid waste district grant in the amount of $65,000 for play structure for community park.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from from Deputy Mayor Lomax. All those in favor of resolution 21?
I have a
Oh,
quick-
go ahead. Any further discussion,
Is
members of
this
council?
like the same size as what we put in Schellenberger? I mean, it's a nice big one. It's not a teeny little. Okay, well, that's fine. I know they got like a slide and a swings over there. And that area, that part gets used quite a bit, especially this time of year by not just the football players, but their siblings. And it would be nice to have something nice, a lot bigger than what we have over there.
Yeah, I mean, the Schellenberger place that cost like $80,000.
Uh-huh.
And we did not get all grant money for that because we just applied for pieces, thinking we could fix the structure.
Right.
So when we first started looking at the play structures for community, we had last year's catalog or the 2021 catalog, and the prices have went up dramatically, like going into 2022, and we won't know till later this year when.
Okay, that's fine. It's going to be bigger than what's there. That's important.
Yeah.
I hope so.
All right, thank you.
Well, that means our share is gonna be something and get bigger probably.
No, it's in the resolution. Our share will still be 30%. And this grant includes the mulch that will go down with the play set.
All right. All those in favor of resolution 21-R-2714 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And the final resolution, Mr. Lohr, is the resolution that will tidy up the ordinance we passed earlier
That's correct.
for the fees.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Deputy Mayor Lomatch. All those in favor of resolution, or is there any further discussion from members of council? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution 21-R-2515 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, staff. We will move on to public comment for non-agenda items, and I do not see anyone joining us in chambers tonight. It must be too nice of an evening outside to be in here with us. We will move on to council member comments. What's that? That's later. It's at the bottom. Yeah. So we're going to have, for those of you who might be watching us, we're going to have council member comments, and then we have a planned executive session, and then possibly a resolution after that. So we will begin council member comments. I will start with Mr. Maxfield.
No comment.
Ms. Franklin.
Yeah, I have, I just wanted to let everyone know, it's more about Metro Parks, but they offer a TBT challenge. And it's the total mileage is like 27 miles. And since it's been so nice, they're gonna do it next weekend. So if you're interested in doing it, you can just go to Metro Parks and get the information on their website. It's a great challenge, and it's a great way for you to get out and kind of see what your Metro Parks have, and get a group together and enjoy the day. That's it.
Ms.
Five
Campbell.
Rivers.
I just wanted to mention I had a opportunity to speak with, or to be in a meeting on Tuesday with the superintendent, and they are back in school, and he wanted to pass along, and I'm sure many of you have gotten this word of thanks already, but the folks who over the summer contributed to the stuffing of the backpacks and really made that a reality for so many students in the Mad River District, it was remarkable. They started school a little bit later this year than a lot of other districts, so their handout was a little bit later, but Chad did pass along his tremendous thanks. And they also thanked for National Night Out. It was the first time we had been able to see each other since school was back in. So thank you to all the city staff and city leadership who really makes the partnership with our local schools a reality, because it's one thing to just say that we support our schools, but I feel like in Riverside, we really are hand in hand with a lot of the initiatives that they're working on Mad River Local. So I just want to pass along Chad's thanks, and I'm really grateful that our staff makes that a priority. Deputy Mayor Lomatch.
I don't have anything, but I will add on to, I've been asked on a lot of times why Mad River starts so late. And so I think it's an opportunity to just state the reason they do that is they're impacted so heavily by military transfers. They were finding that a lot of the children did not show up for school till after Labor Day because of their moves and just relocations and not being sure where they were going to go to school. So the school districts, several years ago, moved their opening up past Labor Day just so that those children are treated correctly on the entry into a new school district.
And the military liaisons that Mad River makes a priority is also something for our entire community to be proud of.
Yes.
At a state level, Mad River is routinely recognized as the one district in the state, not the one school, not the preschool, the high school, whatever. It's the entire district is recognized for the excellence with which they treat and welcome military families and service them while they're here. So other districts are following the Mad River lead, whether it's Beaver Creek or Bellbrook or Northmont. Even where I'm at Carroll High School, we're following Chad's lead on Purple Star School excellence. Brenda.
I have nothing.
All right, Mr. Denning.
I did have a couple of things. Number one, the part of the reason that the schools are able to start Labor Day and finish by Memorial Day is that the state changed the law to hours that they
Not
have
days.
Not days.
to be in school instead of days. And what they did was they lengthened the day by a half hour and then were able to meet the requirement of still meet the requirement of the state. Part of the problem before that was meeting the state's requirement for being in school a certain number of days and having calamity days and all that. So that's the other reason that Mad River. But the big thing was they were able to do it, but the big thing was the military, it does help impact with the military. I do want to thank everybody that showed up for the 9/11 ceremony. I believe the police and fire were very happy with it. I was, if you look on Facebook, it was Facebook Live, and we had 4 council people there, so it was well attended. We had quite a few at the park, and it was a very nice ceremony. Also, the JCs handed out played in the traffic in front of Stebbins High School that same day from 3 to 5 and handed out over 1,000 American flags to people as they drove through, and that was well received. I was a little concerned that people would be upset about slowing down traffic, but once they understood what we were doing, they were not as upset. So that went very well. While I'm on that subject, Miss Kathy, there are no lights that work in Memorial Park. I will talk to you after the meeting about a possible solution to that.
But I will tag on to that to say that I think that the guys and gals
the
did
service
a great
department, yeah.
job. It looked beautiful and
Mhm.
was very, very pristine, and I was very proud of that.
Yeah, and then, yeah, I want to thank the service department
Yes.
for doing that because it really did look nice and was very, very much presentable. Thank you.
I never realized how busy Springfield
No.
Street is on a Saturday morning, however.
Yeah.
The traffic was incredible.
But it was nice. Some cars really did slow down.
Some
try to keep
did,
quiet, so
yes.
That was nice.
Yeah, yes.
Kathy
But
Bev,
not the trash truck.
Kathy Bev had one question she wanted to ask since we're on council member comments.
Yeah, I was wondering about, have you checked out Lorella Pond lately?
Oh, man, I can't imagine.
I mean, it's pretty green, I think.
Is it covered with,
Probably, I haven't seen it in a while, but it was the last time I looked. And I didn't know if anybody checked on it or not.
Yeah, it's.
I thought they were
always
gonna put a
mess.
pump in there.
Yeah, we've been there.
Oh, yeah.
Trick.
All right, well, she'll take a look at that and hopefully we don't have any issues. And at this time, we are planning to go into executive session for the reason listed on the agenda.
so moved?
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Maxfield. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Denny.
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Mrs. Franklin.
Yes.
Ms. Fry,
Yes.
Ms. Lomax.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. We're in executive session at 6:50 PM. Thank you. We take like
Same vein,
Can everybody hear us
Mary
okay?
is gonna be in town on October the
Thank you.
first
Oh, really?
for a 1 o'clock event with the garden club. So
Where are they meeting?
they used to meet at people's house. I think at the Big Creek Library, but I'll have to check on that. But anyway, she's coming because her mother's a member of the garden club and all that.
Yeah,
But
Oh, thank you.
that